What is going on? I want to welcome you to today's episode of From Half Court. I am Sean Murphy. We got a packed episode of the podcast for you today, talking about all things NBA playoffs, the Detroit Pistons coaching search, Troy Weaver's big offseason, and more. But the things that we didn't get to talk about on the pod, Jimmy Butler's incredible playoff performance. In my opinion, one of the greatest playoff performances that I have ever seen. That was starting to go down as we were on the pod, and we were even talking about how many points he had in the first half. And let me tell you, those shots that he made in the fourth quarter, I was literally sitting at my TV with my jaw dropped. That was the epitome of what makes playoff basketball special. Being able to watch a 8th seed, a team that got in through the play-in tournament, a team that we thought had little to no life, all of a sudden is up 3-1 on the Milwaukee Bucks, albeit with some injury issues with Giannis, but still, this is crazy. Can the Bucks make it back in this series? I mean, we're going to be definitely talking about what goes down in this series next week, and I'm definitely going to want to hop on a live stream or do some videos at some point to talk about that series because, man, it is insanely fascinating. But the other thing that we did not get to talk about was the Phoenix Suns coming on top and defeating the Los Angeles Clippers, and we did give some love to Russell Westbrook, who did have an incredible series, but ultimately it came up short. We do talk about the frustrations with this roster, some of the things that they're going to have to deal with this offseason, and the fact that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George just still can't get on the court. What happens with those guys? We'll definitely be talking about that in the upcoming weeks and a little bit in this podcast as well. But first, we definitely have to tell you about our brand new partners, Mint Mobile. You might already be familiar with Mint Mobile because of their advertisements featuring Ryan Reynolds, who's also an owner of Mint. But let me tell you, the real star of Mint is their amazing service and their low prices. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G LTE network, and the way they keep their prices so low is they sell directly to you online. No retail stores or salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and a free mobile hotspot. Mint also offers a modern family plan that allows you to set up a super affordable family plan for as little as 2 lines. I personally switched to Mint Mobile myself because I was really sick of paying really high prices for mobile service, and quite frankly, I was hesitant to switch for a long time because I thought you needed the premium names in order to have the best service. But the reality of it is, I've switched to Mint Mobile, and I can honestly tell you that I've noticed no difference. If anything, I've noticed that the speeds are always consistent. I've noticed the calls are always crisp. My text messages go through instantly, and the service is overall fantastic. The only thing I notice is how much less my bill is, and quite frankly, Mint Mobile's been a godsend. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their digital eSIM cards, you can switch right to Mint Mobile from the comfort of your own home. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint can get you a new SIM card free of charge. The entire process takes only 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, customer service is right there to help you right away. If you're interested in reliable coverage and fast data for a fraction of the cost, go to the link in my description below or scan the QR code right up here on the screen. It's mintmobile.com/Sean Murphy. That's mintmobile.com/Sean Murphy. Thanks so much to Mint Mobile for partnering with us on this podcast. And with that, let's get right into it. What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Wednesday, April 26, 2023. I am one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, alongside my boy, Jeff Iafrady, Sky Blue, pretty boy, Jeff Iafrady. What's going on, brother? Good to see you.
What's going on, fellas? Good to see y'all. I'm not in space, but I made some calls and now I got the skyline of Detroit here. So
Woo!
from half court, we're doing different
You're
things.
in
We're kind of
Windsor.
yeah, we're leveling up. I'm reporting live from Windsor, but no, it's nice to be here, man. We're deep in the playoff, not deep in the playoffs, but deep in the first round, I should say. And there's been some exciting series. Got the coaching search for the Pistons. I'm excited to get into it all with you fellas, man.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think my voice is starting to come back, so a lot more to say now. So I'm ready.
Our boy's not on load management anymore. He got off the bench.
Unlike Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you made room for Kawhi and PG so that they could take their sweet time. But also joining us is the man himself, the Marquette Heat, here to take his seat. The man, the myth, the legend, Troy Sergey. What's happening, Troy?
Not a ton, Sean, but rhyming heat with seat has probably been your best rhyme so far with the intro. So I applaud you for that. But hey, just as we said last week, NBA playoffs are here, first round. But I think even since we met last Monday, a lot has changed in the NBA playoffs. It's gotten more exciting, I think.
Oh, yeah.
We're here to talk about it. And I'm just so excited for these next couple of game 5s, game 6s, and game 7s coming up. So,
yeah, 100%, man. We have a lot of exciting basketball, a lot of developments. The landscape of these playoffs feels like they have changed on a day-to-day basis. We'll dive in a whole lot of that. But first, we have some Detroit Pistons to talk about, and we'll do that in a second. But this is From Half Court, where each and every week we talk about all things Detroit Pistons and NBA basketball. If you like that, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you're not missing any of the content we have going on here. But also be sure you follow us on social media. My boy Jeff Iafrady at Jeff Iafrady, the boy Troy at Troy Sergey 44, and myself at Sean Half Court for all the latest updates, news, content, memes, whatever we're posting, and any updates we got. But with that, folks, let's talk about the Detroit Pistons in their coaching search. We are 3 weeks away from the lottery, guys. Big decisions are finally being made. Dominoes are finally beginning to fall. As of the recording, it has just been announced that according to Adrian Wojnarowski, Ime Udoka, who is the biggest name on the coaching market, has officially agreed to be the head coach of not the Detroit Pistons, but the Houston Rockets, who, it seemingly has become a unspoken rival of the Pistons over the last couple of years. Maybe more so between the fan bases than the teams. But guys, I want to get your initial reaction when you saw that Ime Udoka has agreed to become the head coach of the Rockets. I know a lot of Pistons fans, and even myself included, very initially, made the connection of Ime interviewed here before. This would be a great fit for now, but I think once you look past the surface, guys, it was going to be pretty difficult to have Ime Udoka in Detroit. But Jeff, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts?
I actually love this, and I think rivalry aside, I think even Houston fans will be willing to admit that Houston post James Harden has been a little bit of a circus show, and now you've been able to at least
during James Harden, it was a circus show. I think we all can.
I guess I should say without postseason success. Now it's just a circus show, and you're picking top 5 every year, so that's probably even worse. But with Houston, specifically with this hire, I love it. I mean, Ime Udoka, to me, when we talked about this last week, he was the best coach clearly available. I mean, he went to a finals in his first year as head coach. So, I mean, against guys that are assistants that haven't become head coaches, yeah, he's got the best resume. But Houston, to me, this felt like a move that, I don't want to say desperate because you got a damn good coach, but it kind of did feel a little desperate in a way. And you kind of laid it out the way they fired Steven Silas. Now it's like, hey, first team to really hire a head coach. Now they're going to get this thing going with their young core. I don't hate it. I love the hire. I don't know what this means for Houston going forward. I don't have a good enough sample size of Ime Udoka to say, oh, yeah, Ime will turn, the Houston around. I mean, I only saw a small sample size with a very good team in Boston. And this is a very different situation for Ime. You're coaching a rebuild, and it's not just a rebuild. It's a team that with the pieces that they currently have, there's a lot of question marks with some of those guys. So it's for Ime to figure it out. But yeah, Houston, as disorganized as it's been, it's a pretty good hire, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with going out and getting a guy on the market who in his one season of coaching made it to the finals, right? Troy, I would love to get your thoughts as well. For me, another thing that, like I think about as well is that coaching staff that Ime Udoka had with him in Boston. Because, you look at it, it's not just one guy on that staff, Troy, but three of those guys now. Like if you include Ime, there's also Will Hardy, and then there's also Joe Mazzulla. Those potentially could be three of the top 10 coaches in the entire NBA. And so if you look at the amount of support and help that Udoka had on that bench in Boston, do you think that could potentially be a factor of not having that in Houston?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, if I'm a Rockets fan and I, first hear about this news, I'm content with it, right? Because you're bringing in a winning coach with, I guess, one season, taking him to the finals. I mean, there's not much better that you can get than that, besides, I guess, maybe winning a title, but that's somewhat unrealistic for a first-time NBA coach in his first season. So, but I think what makes me excited is, like I mentioned, the winning culture that he brings. But with that, I think in a lot of ways, and we, talked about this a little bit before we, went on air, was that I think they're banking a lot on Victor Wembanyama. And I guess that was my first reaction, my gut reaction when I saw that hire, is that they're really hoping for number one. If not number one, then certainly they want number 2 or 3 to bring in a player like that and to hopefully get the rebuild maybe behind them in some ways. At least I'm talking front office, their hopes. I'm not saying that's what's going to 100% happen, but I think they're moving in the direction where they would want to have a win now culture. And I think that starts with the coaching hire, going to start with the draft, and it's going to progress into even the offseason too, and seeing some of the names that, Sean, I'll let you throw out that I think Rockets fans are kind of desperate to see maybe come in a Rocket uniform next season.
Yeah, for sure. I think, to your guys, like to your point there, Troy, I think it's a, like if like it's not only like banking on, Victor, but I think it's banking on, I think Houston has always been a market and a team that's looking to make big moves. It's always looking to make a big splash, that when they are winning, they want big names in Houston Rockets uniforms, right? And, like I think, on top of the Victor Wembanyama thing, I think there's also, I think there's Houston Rockets fans who are now making the immediate tie of Jaylen Brown. If there is a team that he were to go to, there certainly is that link now. But also I think, I think it's obvious that, like James Harden, even though he has left Houston, he has strongly been linked to Houston again. Even, like no matter what happens, with this 76ers team, like it's come up too much for me at this point that I just, he's going to be a Houston Rocket. Like unless Philly is somehow like going to be able to come with this awesome offer. And when you when you think about it in that sense, I just question from a basketball standpoint, like just with the roster that they currently have, I personally would have been interested to see a Nick Nurse in that role, more so because I think because he's more of an offensive schematic X and O type coach that can create some looks for them. And I do think this is going to help with having a coach that's defensive minded and discipline oriented, because this locker room needs it. But guys, I would argue at the same time, they have some personnel that are some good 3-and-D prospects, but like this roster isn't, as currently constructed, at least, is not a roster that fits the way Ime Udoka coaches.
And that has to be something that was sold to him, or he was sold on in the interview, or when he was interviewing for the job. Like, hey, this roster that we currently have won't be the same very soon, whether it's through the offseason or, like you mentioned, with James Harden, big names being rumored. Like, there has to be something more than just Ime going to the Rockets. Because you're right, Sean. Like, personnel-wise, we never really liked the Rockets. There's some players like Jalen Green, but still, Jabari Smith, Sengun's good, but even then, I mean, it's a weird construction of players. So I think that's something that Ime in the interview specifically probably talked to ownership about. Like, hey, this is something that I'll coach here, but we got to turn this, because if they're winning games, all that noise about the Rockets or about Ime will be out the window. As long
Oh
as they're
yeah.
winning games, so that had to be pitched to him, or he was pitched on something.
Yeah, for sure. And I think ultimately, again, in just like any team that's going to be in this lottery, a lot of their success is going to be dependent on what happens with those ping pong balls, come May 16th. And I think it's just the reality of, what happens to this Houston team if they land 6th,
Mhm.
because Detroit doesn't have that reality. Like, no matter what, they're top 5, but Houston could fall. That is a reality, but at the same time, they could rise too. So I mean, that's just how the lottery works. But again, I'm just interested. I'm surprised by the hire just from the prospects they currently have. It just felt to me like having a offensive minded coach was the philosophy and the direction that they were going to go in. But guys, on the flip side, with the Detroit Pistons, they did not hire Ime Udoka, who was, I think was, probably one of the fan favorites. I'm kind of surprised, like, hearing the pulse on Twitter of like where a lot of people are at. I think a lot of people really like Charles Lee because that's like the, kind of like the Vegas odds, like, favorite name. He's kind of been he's been a name known from day one. He's under the Mike Budenholzer tree, like all that stuff. But like a lot of Pistons fans really wanted Ime Udoka. There's Pistons fans who've argued for Nick Nurse. There's Pistons fans who are hell-bent on Kenny Atkinson. And I think there's this obsession and there's this need for a known commodity, when I think we've seen in the NBA that a lot of teams have thrived with getting a rookie head coach, a young head coach, a first-time head coach. Do you guys think that Detroit's making a mistake with going for someone who is not proven, for someone who is younger, or do you think this is something that fits the roster that they have?
I don't have an issue with it at all. I mean, I think that's across all sports too. Like, sports in general are just getting younger. Whether it's the NFL, the NHL, the MLB, like coaches across all sports are just getting younger. And you sent us it in the group chat earlier. All the young coaches in the NBA that are having success right now, like the NBA is even going younger. Now there's a balance, I believe. Like with the Pistons, Troy mentioned it. You want someone that can teach the team defense clearly, but on top of that, you want experience, whether that's championship experience or you've been a coach for a while. All that stuff does matter, but you want a blend of the two. You want a blend of I prefer at least a younger head coach that can relate to players, that can communicate with this generation. The team is mostly young guys, 20 to 25 years old. Your main young core, but at the same time, you don't want a coach that doesn't have enough experience. So there's a blend there. That's why Charles Lee gets brought up so much, because he's younger, but still he's been with Budenholzer for 10 years, and at least coaching at the NBA level. So I think there's a healthy mix, but that's across all sports, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Not even just guys that are younger, but former players, I think, matter as well. Guys that have played in the NBA, I think that matters also. But
Yep.
no, this is the way the league's going, and I'm here for it.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's actually another interesting fact, is that all three of the candidates for the Pistons that are in the second round of interviews and are currently at this current time the top 3 candidates are all former players in Charles Lee and former player and Warriors assistant Jaron Collins, who apparently blew the Pistons away in the interview process. And also Kevin Ali won the national championship with UConn back in 2014. So I think, they're all young. They're all defensive oriented, but also at the same time, they come from cultures and understand what it takes, to have a culture of accountability and what it takes to be in a winning track. And, I didn't even, like, when I sent you guys earlier a list, this isn't even like a list of like the best young coaches in the NBA. This is literally just, I looked up top 5 youngest coaches in the league. And the 5 youngest coaches in the NBA are: number 1, Will Hardy of the Utah Jazz at 34. He's considered one of the best up-and-coming coaches in the league. Joe Mazzulla, 34 years old. He's one of the best up-and-coming coaches in the league. Mark Daigneault of the Oklahoma City Thunder, also one of the best up-and-coming coaches in the league, has done a hell of a job with the Thunder ever since he's been there. Taylor Jenkins in Memphis, he's 38. And then fifth, Willie Green with New Orleans at 41. So, like, to all those people who are like, I don't know, like, I don't know that guy's name. Like, I get it's not a hire that's going to, like, blow you away initially, but, like, there's only so many jobs in this league. And on the other hand, there's only so many top 20 coaches of all time that are going to be available, or super hot coaches on the market. Like, it's just not many coaches alive have gotten to the finals. So, you know, I just think, you know, like it's not bad to go for the unknown. Also, I would just tell you right now, Nick Nurse to Detroit would never happen. Especially with Dwayne Casey in the building. That ain't happening. I can tell you that right now. But
if anyone knows Nick, also it'd be Dwayne on top of that.
Right.
Yeah. 100%. So from those three candidates, do you guys have a preference of the three? I personally have been doing like a good amount of research, and I would be thrilled. Like, I would personally be like, I think all three would make excellent coaches. I do, you know, like I would I think I do at the top have Lee or Collins, just because they're NBA experience. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, for me, definitely Lee at the top, just because of kind of that perfect mix we talked about, younger and experience, right? And those, I think, are the combo that we need. And to your question earlier, you mentioned, Sean, mistake hiring a younger coach, and absolutely not, because of, like Jeff said, the direction that really all sports are going with, of that younger. And I think, you know, when we look at the landscape of the league too, I just think, like Jeff said, for the players to buy into a culture, to be able to relate to their coach, is going to be so important. But Lee's at the top for me because of the double combo of young and experience.
Yeah, for sure. I talked about this in a video earlier today as a recording, but I want to quiz you guys. When was the last time the Detroit Pistons hired a first-time head coach?
Michael Curry.
Nope. Actually, he was right after Michael Curry.
Oh, John Kuester.
Yep, John Kuester in 2009 to 2011. He was the last first-time coach that we hired. And after that, it was Lawrence Frank. Then it was Mo Cheeks, who was Cheeks. And then Stan
He was only there half the season.
Still counts.
Yeah. Those two hires, Joe was not cooking on those hires. That's all I'm gonna say. God bless you, Joe. We love you, but he was not cooking on those hires. But I mean, no matter what, like, I think, you know, ultimately Detroit's in a really good spot. You know, I think it's, you know, it's definitely, is it a risk to go for a young unproven coach? Absolutely. But you know, another thing, James Edwards III's reporting, The Athletic has spoken to several executives throughout the league who believe that the Pistons head coaching position is the best available position. And that's the reason why, even though these are assistant coaches that they're talking to, these are the prominent assistant coaches who were next in line for head coaching jobs. So it's the best of the next crop, which is exactly what you want for a young and upcoming team.
Yeah, and I want to add this too, on top of all the things we just went through, you know, experience combined with youth, combined with, you know, NBA experience. The other thing I would add in there too is guys that have interviewed before. I think that matters a lot. And Charles Lee interviewed for the Utah job before they hired Will Hardy. So again, like, you look at guys that have taken opportunities and have interviewed, I think that's important too. So Charles Lee, just to give my rankings, Charles Lee number one, just because of, you know, his resume number one, but number two, you look at what other people say about coaches. I think that's important. I don't know Charles Lee, so I only know what I read, and everything I read about Charles Lee, of course, is going to be positive. But I mean, you go and even listen to the guy speak. There's content out on YouTube about it. Just him with the Bucks. The Bucks have put out some good stuff.
Yeah,
like he's well spoken. There's proof in the pudding there with Budenholzer, him under his staff. We talk about a growing coaching tree. Budenholzer's there. I mean, Jenkins, Darvin Ham, just to name two. Or Kenny Atkinson, actually, to bring up. You just brought him up earlier. He's a part of that Budenholzer tree as well. So again, I would probably go Charles Lee, 2, And I hate ranking because, again, like to your point, Sean, I kind of like all three of these guys. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to rank. Like we don't know. I don't know enough personally about them to like differentiate.
Yeah.
But my favorite would be Charles Lee, and then two, I'd say I would say Jaron Collins. I'd probably have the same list as you, Sean.
Yeah.
Just the NBA experience I value a little more.
Yeah.
That's why I say that.
I mean, all three, like you can listen to them and it's like, yep, okay, you all are going to be good coaches someday. Like I genuinely would have confidence in all three of them for different reasons, you know. And it's like with Jaron Collins, you know, he was actually like credited as like the defensive coordinator of the Golden State Warriors, like during their rise, and he's someone who's been, highly touted, and the fact that he came in, wasn't originally like super high on their board, but was someone who blew them away during that initial interview. And like you said, Jeff, listening to all of them, they have charisma. Like you can go and listen to any of them talk, and it's like, yep, you could see why they're being strongly considered for this position.
And I want to say this too, just to make this clear, because I know this can be misconstrued like, oh, you're a Pistons podcast, of course you're going to love all three candidates. No, actually, the reason why we say that is because you really don't know who's going to be a good head coach and who's not.
Yeah.
Like you're really trusting on character, like how they speak, what their plan is for the team. Like you really just, like you brought up all the first time head coaches that, recent history that Pistons have hired. Like Joe Dumars, listen, you say what you want about it. Like it's hard to hire a good head coach.
It starts with the leader of men, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And the reality of it is, with head coaches, you know their fingerprint, their imprint on the game, because they're the one that sets the strategy, sets the game plan. They're the ones that set all of that. The assistant coach is a lot more of a complicated job. We don't know exactly what they do on a day-to-day basis. We don't know what their role is within the team. We know that some coaches have responsibilities of scouting for certain opponents. We know that assistant coaches work with specific players, but beyond that, we don't know anything. All we know is that these guys have been in championship programs, have been around championship coaches, and those coaches have said, these guys are great. And that's all you can really rely on. And then you look at who's the person hiring and what are they basing this decision on. And you know with Troy Weaver that the character and the person comes first. And when you can look at all three of these, candidates, look at their backgrounds and say, yep, this lines up exactly with the Pistons' philosophy. All three of these guys are high character men. And, the fact that I think it speaks volumes that Ime Udoka wasn't even brought up as getting an interview with the Pistons. I think it speaks volumes that they didn't even talk to him. Like there wasn't even contact from what we know. So I think, at the end of the day, we'll ultimately, know in the long run, what the right decision is. I don't know if we'll necessarily know by the lottery, but I would wager by the next podcast, we'll have a much better idea of who the next head coach of the Detroit Pistons is.
Yeah, one last thing with coaches, and I think what we see, especially with Charles Lee, a guy that we talked about, was the player development too that they've been under too, right? And seeing how guys like Giannis and Middleton and even Holiday in Milwaukee have flourished over the past couple of years, and to know that, of course, they have the trainers, of course, they have their own work ethic to look at, but to know that the assistant coaches are still a part of that growth process, especially in the offseason, especially during midseason, of making sure that they themselves, the players, are becoming better players on an individual standpoint, of course, to help their team too. So it's not always X and O's either, right? It's about trusting and buying into players. And I think the Pistons have a great opportunity with some of the young talent that we have to just see growth, and more growth.
Yeah. And real quick, before we move on, when you're hiring somebody, you want to look at their former job. What did the growth process look like? Like, did this person quickly rise in their company? What, how were they respected? You look at a lot of things. With Charles Lee, with Mike Budenholzer, 10 years on his staff, 2 different teams, and last year he was promoted to the associate head coach. So he's Budenholzer's right-hand man. Like, that says a lot about Charles Lee. I mean, to be a right-hand man on a team that's championship expectations every year says a lot about you.
Yeah, and I got a lot. So I posted a clip as well of Kevin Ali and just a speech that he had like in his overtime, after a practice and overtime elite, and I had a lot of stupid responses saying we need a coach, not a guidance counselor. And it's like, if you don't understand the correlation of an NBA coach being a leader of young men and also the X's and O's. Like, I would argue that the head coach is 80% a relational position, and then 20% is what you see on the court. Like, the reality
Especially
is,
with our young roster, right? Yeah.
especially like not only with a young roster, but with egos of like these are the top 250 best men in the world at basketball, and you're managing 12 to 15 egos and over who's getting minutes, who's getting touches. You know, why do we keep losing these games? Like those are like actual things that you have to handle as like an NBA coach and a head of a locker room. You need a special person in order to be able to do that. Like, if you don't understand the correlation between being a leader and a coach, I got nothing for you. You're just a dumbass. Like, that's just all there is to it. Like, you just don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. But anyway, not to be mean, but it's just like,
no,
it's just like literally, you don't have to go out. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. Like, literally, this is like Isaiah Thomas. The secret of basketball is that it's not about basketball. It's about the human dynamics. Like, winning basketball is about the team. Like, we've talked about this before. Anyway, speaking of winning basketball, the playoffs are going down right now. And boy, oh boy, have we had an interesting weekend. Guys, I'm going to let you pick which avenue we dive down first. Do we go down the avenue of Giannis's, the Giannis injury?
Troy, you pick.
Yeah.
I pick. Oh man.
Yeah, what series do you want to talk about first, Troy?
First, I think LA and Memphis will be fun.
Ooh, yeah, I think that's a great one. LA and Memphis. So the Memphis Grizzlies are down 2-1 against the Los Angeles Lakers. Ja Morant came back and hooped in game 3. I wasn't expecting him to play, let alone to the extent that he hooped. Man. I mean, LeBron, even at like post game, he was like, that boy's good. Like, just straight up, like, that boy's good. He's like, yeah, just that boy's good. Like, that's all you can say. But it was really the 9 points in the first quarter that the Grizzlies scored, and the 13 shots that Dylan Brooks took in the first half, only making 3 of them. And then in the first 15 seconds of the second half, punching LeBron in the dick unintentionally and getting ejected. So, overall, pretty good night for the Grizzlies. And then after that, Dylan Brooks came out and essentially making himself out to be the victim. Everyone making me to be the villain. Everyone says I'm the villain. No! Everyone says you're the villain because you act like a villain. If you're an ass and everyone calls you an ass, don't be offended when we say you're an ass.
If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
Probably
a duck.
Yeah, if it walks like an ass, talks like an ass.
It's probably an ass.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just picturing a walking butt now. Anyway, in all I am a moron. But guys, in all seriousness, it like we felt like that the Memphis season was over ever since the Ja Morant gun incident happened, right?
Yeah.
But it really feels like, even though like we're still confident in this team's future going forward, like it feels like they have some real identity issues like they have to address this offseason, because I don't know if it's a great thing that they're as reliant on Steven Adams as they are, as good of a player as he is. I don't like the fact that sort of derailed your season too. Isn't great, but also I don't think Dylan Brooks should be the leader of your locker room, especially when you're having all these immaturity issues.
No, it should be Dylan Brooks. I mean, you see that graphic that was put up? It was like Dylan Brooks and LeBron and both their accolades in their career. Did you see that? And which I love that, by the way. I'm a big LeBron fan, so I enjoyed that. But still, this Grizzlies series to me has been over, and for a couple different reasons. It's not even like I'm just clear-cut disrespecting the Grizzlies, because I actually, as much as I want to hate the Grizzlies, I respect them, and they're still respectable. Even
you have to.
They're one, yeah. Even without Steven Adams, even without Brandon Clark, even with Dylan Brooks, who I despise so much, I had to give him respect. But going into this series, now that we're 3 games in, like the Lakers to me with Anthony Davis, that was the player I was paying most attention to because no Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark. What was AD going to do? And right now he's leading all the playoffs in blocks and rebounds, and he's been pretty damn good. So credit to AD, but yeah, the Lakers I think got this one in the bag. I stuck with it. I said Lakers. I believe I said Lakers in 6 last week. Excuse me. I'm gonna stick with that. Maybe I give Memphis a game, but it's scary when Ja comes back, plays that well. Lakers still find a way to win.
Yeah, but like it really does feel like though, like Dylan Brooks and like granted, like, I don't know if that was, like a coaching decision. I don't know if he just straight up took matters into his own hands, but like, it feels like Dylan Brooks shot this team out of the game in the first half.
He did.
Like,
He did.
like
No, he actually
13
did.
shots from
he
Dylan
actually
Brooks. Dylan Brooks is not an offensive player. That is not his role at all, let alone in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we were even talking about Sean at the deadline. Like, it would be kind of nice and interesting if Memphis was to, depart from him during the part ways with him during the trade deadline. And we didn't see that. We talked about rumors with Toronto and all that. And now it's certainly looking interesting, especially with all this chaos. But I want to touch on the Lakers quick because, this is a different team than 3 months ago. Obviously, we know with Russ on the roster, not on the roster anymore, things have to change. But, I'm seeing LeBron James look like himself a little more. Of course, maybe not prime peak, 2012 LeBron. We're not seeing that LeBron, but we're seeing a LeBron James with a huge role on this team. And we're seeing Austin Reeves step up in a lot of big ways too. That's been really fun to watch. And I just see the Lakers have and say they win this series against Memphis, neither plays Golden State or Sacramento. Let's just say Golden State. That's going to be a great series too, to then have the winner of that series be in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I
Western Conference Finals.
Sorry, yes, Western Conference Finals. So I just see a lot of potential that the Lakers have, and I would not have said that 3 months ago. I don't think any of us would have said that.
Yeah, I mean, credit to the Lakers for sure. Like, the roster around LeBron is definitely better than it was. I did see a graphic today that Russell Westbrook is currently averaging more points, assists, and rebounds than all 3 of the players that the Lakers added at the deadline combined, which I thought was super funny. We'll talk about Russell Westbrook in a little bit because we do as a podcast have to give him his flowers. Like, for all the smack we talked, we do have to give him his flowers 100%. We will get there, believe me. But I like that's not a knock on that's not a knock on those players, by the way. The one thing the one thing I will say, D'Angelo Russell's a bum. That boy's a bum. Like, if you pay that man the bag this offseason and like you commit to him,
you're not smart as an organization.
No. like honestly, I like as good as the Lakers look, I question LeBron's, the durability with the foot as the playoffs proceed. Anthony Davis is despite his dominance, like game 1, he was awesome. Game 2, where the hell was he? Game 3, he was awesome. So based on that pattern, I have no idea what to expect from Anthony Davis tonight. But, at the same time, like, if you look at who they could potentially be facing on the other side of it to segue into this other series, the Sacramento Kings are for real, guys. And so are the Golden State Warriors. I mean, listen, Jeff, you said it last week. We could very legitimately be sitting here looking at a 2-2 series next time we're sitting here. And Jeff, look at that. As we're recording, when this podcast will come out, it might not be that case, but it's currently 2-2.
Yeah.
Not just that, but I want to say Jeff predicted not only 2-2, but the games won by each team. A game 2 to the Kings and a 3-4 to the Warriors. So props to you, Jeff.
I got you. And hopefully the Warriors.
Man, what a bold guy picking the home teams to win their games. That guy went out on a limb.
Yeah, and I didn't say. I guess I didn't go on a limb. All I said was, I guess, don't be surprised. I guess
yeah.
That is a take, but you know what? It is. I'm just because this happens every playoffs. Like, there's always a team that goes down 2-0 and everyone goes, it's like, no, even the Golden State Warriors, like both games even at home, the first game without Draymond, like they obliterated the Kings without Draymond. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I will say though, the one thing, like, Harrison Barnes did kind of lose them game 4. Like, there was a
He did
very
miss that shot. Yeah, it
yeah.
was a big shot.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox has been sensational.
Huge.
It's really been. I was expecting De'Aaron Fox to struggle in the playoffs. I'm going to be honest. I was still not fully a De'Aaron Fox believer coming into these playoffs. But, like, I'm not saying he's on this player's level, but it's felt very reminiscent to Devin Booker, where it's like, man, just get me in the playoffs. And then now we get to watch him hoop and we get to watch him shine. However, as of today, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, De'Aaron Fox has a broken tip of his left shooting index finger. He is doubtful for game 5. And if he were to play, he would have to wear some form of protective gear on his hand. And guys, I mean, Troy, Jeff, you guys played basketball growing up. You know as well as anybody, if you're touching a basketball and you have a hand injury in your shooting hand, that can mess everything up. Especially the index finger. I mean, guys, that's the most important finger.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, certainly going to be difficult, I think, for the Kings to bounce back without him with that. But I mean, Sabonis. I mean, they have a kind of a deep roster too. I mean, Sabonis is their other star.
Well, okay, but Sabonis. All right. No. I'm not letting you do this. Sabonis is their other star. Sabonis has been ass this series.
Right, I agree. But he's still a all-star type player.
He is. 100%.
That's what I'm getting at. I should have said the word a star, not the star.
I know.
I agree. But I'm even a Keegan Murray, a Malik Monk. I mean, these are guys who are stepping up in the playoffs, and we saw Keegan Murray have some good shots in Game 4 against the Warriors. So I still see avenues in which the Kings can still push this to a Game 7, absolutely, and maybe even win. But without a healthy Fox, it'll be a little more hard.
Right, it'll be a little more hard. But I mean, guys, let's remember, despite that, the Kings are still in the driver's seat in the sense that they have home court advantage going down this stretch. And like I said last podcast, this is going to come down to, can a team win a road game? Because if Golden State can't win a game on the road, I mean, straight up, it goes, game 5 in Sacramento, game 6 in Golden State. Where's game 7 at, guys?
Sac.
So if they can't win a game on the road, then Sacramento just wins based off the home court advantage they had at the beginning of the series.
Mm-hmm.
If Sacramento can go and steal one in game 6, that just wraps it all up. So to me, the Kings are in prime position to win this series, but I think the pressure is on the Warriors to get it done on the road, especially with how abysmal this team's been on the road this year. I mean, guys, they have freaking 8 road wins, and they're going to have to go out and try and get their 9th. This might be their most important game of the season.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think on top of that, too, the De'Aaron injury, just to talk about that for a second, the only time I can remember an index injury, I guess not on this type of stage, but Kobe in 2010, Game 7, when he faced the Celtics, had the same injury. He had that little thing on his finger. So De'Aaron, it is possible, but De'Aaron's doubtful. I don't know if he's going to play. I think that does alter the series a little bit. What hand is it on?
It's on his shooting hand.
Yeah, left hand.
Yeah.
Again, De'Aaron Fox, uber athletic, doesn't affect that, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, even for a guy who's not the greatest shooter, it might affect it, but still, I don't think it. I think it changes the series a little bit, but Sean, you nailed it. Whoever can win on the road, I think that's the bigger thing to take away, because regardless of what happens, if Golden State can't win, you're right, Kings win in 7.
Yeah, for sure. And, I know a lot of people after the Draymond incident were just, quick to the, well, Draymond's done in Golden State, which that could still be true. But, you very much still see the effect that he has on this team and, on this roster. And, again, the fact that Sabonis, at least from a scoring standpoint, has almost been a non-factor. I know he's been struggling a little bit with his, with rebounding as well. And he was, leading the league in rebounding this year. And, I know he can still make plays as a playmaker. Sabonis does have good vision for a center, and he does help initiate some of their offense. But at the same time, I just think he's a player that unless he like I just think with his limited athleticism, as especially as a big, he doesn't have the capabilities like another guy who we're going to talk about right now, a Jalen Brunson, who can overcome his athletic shortcomings with his incredible basketball mind in his play. Because, man, guys, I'm not going to lie. I mean, like, this series was close. At the beginning of the series, I still thought the Cavs were going to win. But the New York Knicks have straight up been the better team. And they have made Donovan Mitchell's life a living hell this series. And on the other end, it seems like they have no solution to the Jalen Brunson puzzle. They got nothing. What are you guys' thoughts?
RJ Barrett's been balling too. RJ Barrett's been balling too. But that double combo, you're right, Sean. That lefty scoring guard have a hard time stopping Brunson and Barrett. So
yeah, but also like Donovan Mitchell was screaming in the freaking in the timeout, like he needed help. Like on the Cleveland side, guys, outside of Donovan Mitchell, who's creating a shot right now?
Yeah, that's the problem too. I mean, even for a guy like, we talk about a lot Darius Garland in this specific series. Like it hasn't been as consistent as I'd like him to be. And even then in game one, the one thing we brought up on this podcast was Donovan Mitchell. I think he took 38 shots that game, if I'm not mistaken. It was something like that, 30 plus shots. Regardless, Cleveland to me is, as much as I like their roster, like I like the players, I think this is too early for them. I think this moment right now, team chemistry-wise, they're not there yet. It's clear, and there's going to be some moves they're going to have to make. But regardless, like their team, just not this series. Knicks looked better. They're better coached. You could tell, at least playing together, why they look way more comfortable than the Cavaliers. It's weird. It's just how this works in basketball. It's not always star talent. You need star talent and you need chemistry. I mean, even the Warriors, the most stacked team of all time, had a ton of chemistry already in place when KD got there, and KD, the most seamless fit player in the NBA, drop on any team. So it's not as easy as 1 + 1 = 2. So the Cavaliers to me just aren't there yet. Credit to the Knicks, man. I mean, even for a franchise that gets dogged a lot, I mean, although I don't have high expectations for the Knicks, just to win a first round series against a team that was one of the better teams in the East, it's great. And to be led by a free agency addition that some criticized, it's even better.
Want to know what's what I think is another factor that's really deciding this series? The Knicks bench is just better. Like they have guys that can come in, like Josh Hart, who's playing big time basketball for them. Emmanuel Quickley is a guy that comes off the bench who looks like a rising star as a guard. Like Emmanuel Quickley gives me some Lou Will vibes.
You know what? Yeah. Can I say this too? What I don't understand with Cleveland, why they had Karis LeVert coming off the bench, and the bench is already weak as it is, and now he's in the starting lineup, and Isaac Okoro is now off the bench. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on there. That was my issue, because even earlier when we looked at the series, it's like, they don't have a good bench, and they just took their best player off their bench, put him in the starting lineup. So
in game 3, Cleveland was held to under 80 points, which, by the way, was the first time this season any team was held under 80 points.
Jesus Christ.
And it actually, if you look at the box score, they actually had some decent performances. Like they got some scoring from their starting lineup. Granted, Darius Garland went 4 of 21, but you know how many? You want to guess how many points they got from their bench? 14.
Can't win.
Nope, not when Josh Hart and Quickley alone gave you a combined 24. So. I mean, that, like, you talk about the importance of depth. Like, we talked about that trade that they made for Donovan, and they were going to have to give up a lot. I think the Knicks, they're feeling pretty happy with the fact that they did not ultimately pull that trigger. I mean, guys, I know I keep taking this credit, and, it's like a running joke we have in this podcast, but, like, jokes aside, Jalen Brunson, man, holy cow. Like,
yeah,
he's
a hooper.
Yeah, you talk about the importance of having a good human being in your coaching chair. Like the person that's running your basketball team as the point guard, like who's the general of that team? Like it feels like he's a traditional point guard, like in the ilk of like a Chauncey Billups, who just goes out and makes big time plays. He's not the most athletic. He's not the most gifted. But you know what he is? He's one of the smartest guys on the court. He's one of the best leaders in the game, and he can hit a shot when you need him to.
From all levels of the court, right? He's a great shooter, spot up shooter, but also he can make his own shot, create his own shot in the lane. I mean, as well as, like you mentioned, can facilitate the ball, sees the court better than anyone else. So yeah, John, I mean, he's making the difference in this series. Without Jalen Brunson, we might be talking about 5-1 Cavs lead. I don't know about that, but you know what I mean?
5-1 Cavs lead. Is that's not even possible.
Well, I meant 5 games 4-1. Yeah,
I know.
But you know what I mean, though, is he's making all the difference for the Knicks. He's making all the right plays and playing winning basketball.
Yeah.
And another player that goes under the radar, Josh Hart, who they just acquired at the trade deadline for Cam Reddish, I believe it was.
Yeah.
If am I mistaken? Yeah. Okay, great addition. Josh Hart came from different organizations. He's always been solid, and to see him with the Knicks now moving into the starting lineup, shout out to the Knicks, man. They made some smart moves. I can't believe I'm saying that, but the Knicks made some smart moves.
Yeah. For the first time in a long time, the Knicks, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, look like a viable free agent destination.
What? Oh my gosh. What kind of universe are we in, Sean?
We're in the multiverse right now, man. I can't believe what's happening. And you know what? Like with the Giannis injury, which, by the way, looking at the score as of right now, it looks like it's 28-25. So it looks like, it looks like, okay, no, Giannis is playing. That's a lie. Okay, yeah, they briefly lied to me to make it look like he wasn't playing. He is.
Jimmy Butler, by the way, has 19 of their 25.
Yeah, that's big.
Dude.
That's big.
I mean, Jesus.
The Heat infuriate me, man. They coasted through the regular season, kind of limped through the play-in, and now they have a chance to beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. Without
Tyler Hero.
Like, what the hell?
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I still have my bet on Milwaukee, guys. I just think when Giannis is even at 70% Giannis is all you need to get past this Bucks team.
And I want to bring this up because I also said this last week too, and it was kind of going haywire for a little bit because they're down 2-1. But I was more concerned about the Heat without Hero than I was the Bucks without Giannis. Just this series. I know it sounded crazy, but that's why I said and I don't know how they managed to beat the Bucks last game. Like, credit to the Heat, credit to Spoelstra, man. I mean, those guys. I know it's the players, but yeah, Heat are playing hard even without. The Bucks are still a good team without Giannis. They're even better. They're ceiling raises, but still, it was a good win.
Oh yeah, of course. And like like at this point, like in this game, at this current stage, it is Jimmy Butler willing this team to be competitive. Like
it's his team, right?
Like looking at the box score right now as of recording, a minute and a half to go in the first quarter, Jimmy Butler has 20 of their 26 points. Like, this team rides on him. Like, I'm interested to see what happens with Jimmy Butler this offseason. Would the Knicks be a good landing spot for it? I would love Jimmy Butler alongside Jalen Brunson and some of the pieces they have in New York. I feel like that would be a great fit for Jimmy Butler.
That's a conversation for the first week of July, Sean, I think.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But I mean, Troy, it's never too early to be thinking about this stuff because remember, it was this time last year we were talking about Jalen Brunson as a potential free agent. And Dallas is like, we're not going to let him go. He's not going to walk for nothing. He walked for nothing. But, that's fine. That's fine. Sorry. Condolences. Guys, another series that we have to talk about that is going on in these NBA playoffs. We got to talk about the Celtics and the Hawks. What a weird series this has been. Now, first of all, we generally expected, Atlanta got a win at home. Like in game 3, they came out with energy. Trae Young had 32 and 9. Trae Young has those nights where he can be an awesome player. And then in game 4, the Boston Celtics came back. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown took over and ultimately bested the Atlanta Hawks. But it was after the game where DeJounte Murray walked up to a ref, bumped him, and said something that caused teammates to eventually come and hold him back. And now, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, DeJounte Murray has been suspended for Game 5 in Boston. Guys, we knew this team was going to have to make some drastic changes going into this season. Going into this offseason. Obviously, DeJounte Murray looked frustrated as hell. I was watching that game last night, like between the Celtics and the Hawks. Every single set the Hawks ran was a high pick and roll with Trae Young and dishing it out to open players. If I am a player of the Hawks, I have to be sick of the Trae Young experience. Yeah. And Game 5 now, guys, seems all but sealed for Boston.
Right. Certainly the series, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a good game. I mean, it was a back and forth, competitive Game 4 to a degree, but then the Celtics just were the better team. And I think with the Atlanta Hawks moving forward, they have some interesting decisions to make, especially with Trae Young next year, or this upcoming year in the offseason. But man, you're right, Sean. Especially on a defensive player, easy to pick those plays off. So
yeah, I mean, if I'm like Quinn Snyder, from all intents and purposes, it sounds like he has the keys to the franchise, as far as the decision making this offseason. And Jeff, if I'm Quinn, I'm just watching Quinn Snyder's body language, I can just tell he's just he's just looking at this team all right, yeah, let's just get to the offseason, man.
Yeah, isn't it funny too? You just went through all the reasons why Jalen Brunson checks every one of your character boxes. And now we get to Trae Young, who probably checks none of those.
He's the antithesis.
You talk about the franchise point guard. Trae Young, uber talented. Everyone knows the skills he has. But you can't, again, if you're a franchise player, there's a lot of things you look at, not just what you could do on a court. And even on the court, you talk about team chemistry and what they've been dealing with. It's pretty obvious watching the Hawks. They're not happy with Trae Young, not just front office perspective or from Quinn Snyder's perspective, the players as well. And if players can't rally around you and you're the franchise guy, there's a problem. And for DeJounte Murray, for those two guys playing together, you're going to have to choose one. And if you're going to choose one, you're picking the guy who ultimately has a higher upside as a defender who puts up pretty similar numbers, who's more efficient.
Yeah.
So DeJounte Murray is the guy you keep. But yeah, it's unfortunate for Trae Young. Super talented. It's just he's going to be a guy that floats around the league a little bit, in my opinion.
I'm starting to get some Stephon Marbury vibes, where in his prime he could reach some pretty strong heights, was one of the best guards in the NBA, but due to some personality issues, due to some personal, just the way that he is as a player. And just those team dynamic things are what ultimately could be holding him back from being the player that he can be. I mean, listen, we could rehash this all we want, but if I'm a Hawks fan, as each game passes on in this series, I just get even more sick that we traded away Luka Doncic because at the end of the day, every decision that they're going to have to make this offseason is based off the ramifications of that one trade alone. And, and the difficult part for both Atlanta, but for Trae as well, is what team fits him. Where in the league, what team says, sign me up for that?
Well, I just mentioned Kevin Durant earlier and how if you talk about seamless fit, you could fit him on any team. Trae Young's, again, we're talking about the opposite. He is the complete opposite. He's a guy who's ball-centric. He's not a good defender. Your offense, when Trae Young is on your team and on the court with you, your offense is now centered around Trae Young. So to be honest with you, Sean, it's not about which team's offense can fit Trae Young. It's more about which team is willing to completely change their offense for Trae Young.
Yeah,
that's
right.
The problem.
And it's sure, he could potentially go take over he could take the keys in a Brooklyn, You know, like if Toronto wanted to make some major overhauls, maybe that would be a place where he could fit into a system. But like whatever happens, like would be, you know, like it would be very contingent on Trae Young changing his overall character and who he is as a basketball player would have to change drastically. And like it's infuriating in a sense because he has every tool to be a superstar.
Yeah.
Every tool. Like talent is not the issue with this guy whatsoever. It's just like it's just this hero ball that he plays, and it's like it's just, man, that high pick and roll stuff, man. It's just unwatchable. It just is. And speaking of unwatchable, this Denver Minnesota series has been one for the ages. I never saw a game so competitive where no one gave a shit and also everyone was saying was a terrible game at the same time. Somehow Minnesota was up by 12, you know, at one point, at one point in the fourth.
With 2:50 to go.
Yeah. And then Denver made a 12-0 run. Karl Anthony Towns makes a terrible foul at the end of the game, giving Denver 2 free throws. I believe Jokic 2 free throws, which very well could have ended their season. Luckily, Jokic only makes 1, allowing them to go to overtime, where Anthony Edwards makes some clutch shots, getting Minnesota at least 1 win in this series. But I mean, guys, if this series is telling me anything, I'm still not particularly encouraged by the Denver team that I'm seeing. And it just makes me believe this Western Conference is way more wide open than I even thought it was. And we already thought it was way wide open.
Sure. But I tell you, I guess moving aside a little bit, Phoenix has been fun too. But Denver quick.
Oh yeah, we're just getting this to the side so we can get to more fun stuff. Don't worry.
Right. But go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. But like, Jeff, do you have any thoughts on this series at all?
No, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't tune into a single game. So
yeah, 100%.
I kind of knew how this series was going, but hey, credit to Timberwolves. It's tough when you're a team and there's no progression and you just keep losing in the first round. That's what the Minnesota Timberwolves are gonna do if they don't completely tear this thing down by trading either Karl Anthony Towns or Karl Anthony Towns. So like that's your 2 options. Pick one. Timberwolves are man.
Who called that, by the way?
Yeah, go Bear, man. Go Bear. Go Bear.
I think I saw a list where Anthony Edwards is now like second in like players like players that are like under 20, like 21 with like the most 30-point games in the playoffs. Like he has 5 30-point games already. Like
yeah, he's a stud.
Yeah.
He build around him.
Yeah. I mean, any questions we had about Anthony Edwards and like if he wanted it, if he's a competitor, all that, those are gone. Like that guy, like that kid's special. Build around him. But again, a cat, another star where I just like who the hell trades for him? That's just where my thought goes. But I mean, again, the series that is really I think been fascinating. This Phoenix and Clippers series, guys. Kawhi Leonard seemingly just not playing is apparently like kind of is injured, but like is healthy enough where he could be playing potentially. Like apparently like Ty Lue is just starting to let his frustrations come out a little bit, and players are even starting to let their frustrations. I mean, guys, I love Kawhi Leonard, or at least I did at one point. But I kind of concur with a point that Colin Cowherd made. Just retire, dude. Yeah. Stop wasting Steve Ballmer's time and money. I know he's going to stay and get the bag. But, like, at this point, man, I'm done. I'm done trying to rationalize or justify. Like, this dude only cares about that dude. What are you guys' thoughts?
I mean, you know what would echo that? Watching Kawhi on a contract year in Toronto lead them to a championship and win. Like that's watching Kawhi in a contract year is entertaining, but now that he's gotten paid and now he has all these load management, like even missing, I watched game 1 And what did he miss? Game 2 or 3? Was it game 3?
He's missed game 2. I think Kawhi's pretty much missed since game 1, right?
So just okay. Well, regardless, I watched the first game when he played, and I'm like, wow, Kawhi's an issue. Like he's balling in the playoffs. I turn on game 2 or game 2, 3, whatever game he missed, and I'm like, where's Kawhi at? Like what? And I had to check my phone to find out he had an injury. Like I'm like, how? So I don't understand it. If I'm a Clippers fan, I'm pissed. I'm pissed that Paul George is hurt. I'm pissed that Kawhi won't play, and I'm loving what I'm getting out of Russell Westbrook. Shout out to him for turning it around. But still,
there.
Kawhi Leonard, he's got to be one of the most frustrating superstars to pay attention to over the last year and a half.
And I'm glad you brought it up because Russell Westbrook has come alive in these playoffs, both out of necessity, but also out of energy. And this guy is bursting past defenders. He's looking like old Russell Westbrook right now. And listen, is this sustainable? I have no idea. Do I think this would have happened if the Lakers situation didn't happen? No, not at all. I think you saw a guy who was super motivated and a fire ignited him, but also I think you saw that if you actually put him on a team that kind of fits Russ, in a role that fits Russ, he could still look like a really good basketball player.
Can I say this? Can I say this too, Troy, before you go? I think Russ playing well, and I don't want to take too much credit away because I want to give him credit. I think it also speaks to how bad the Suns have gotten defensively too. Like I think there's a part of that with all what they did at the deadline, getting
their depth's non-existent, man. So
I think also as much credit as Russell deserves, I think it also speaks to maybe the Suns with the star power they have. They're not perfect. I mean, they still have some issues.
I still think this team could get to the finals, but that is definitely the weakness. I mean, like the fact that the Clippers have looked this competitive despite all the injuries and the people that they've been missing. I mean, Troy, like, it definitely brings a concern, but like, I mean, Russ, like, you're definitely glad that you're getting this, but like at the same time, like as a Clippers fan, it's like, all right, well, like at least Russ is out here giving us effort every night. Like, you have Paul George talking about how durability isn't a talent thing. It's an effort thing. And he's missing multiple games in the playoffs. And you have Kawhi Leonard, which, he's going through some stuff. His sister was this past week was just sentenced, was just found guilty of murder. So like, he certainly has a lot going on in his personal life right now. And I don't want to take away from that. But like, when you get the keys to a franchise and you are brought in to like the Clippers gave up everything to get Kawhi. Like, yes, like they get like those assets were to get Paul George, but ultimately it was to get them Kawhi. And that decision is seemingly in turn costing them everything because, man, like you talk about like, a franchise player, like I would rather have Trae Young than Kawhi Leonard right now because I know Trae Young's at least playing.
Right. Yeah. Right. And playing good basketball on a talent perspective, I guess, too. But yeah, to your point, Sean, I mean, you guys both hit on it. I mean, it's unfortunate if you're a Clippers fan because you have all the potential in the world with those two guys on your roster to compete in the Western Conference, in an open Western Conference. And you're just not doing it because of load management and injury, I guess. But it's interesting. Another guy who I've been a little bit impressed with this series has been Norman Powell. He's a guy that we wouldn't have been talking about, leading the team in scoring one of the games. But he's a guy that can get a bucket. It'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason with him. But I still think this is the Suns' series to win. Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like the Clipper. I mean, listen, if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George aren't on the court, we're not even having a conversation about them winning a series. So I mean, Phoenix is up 3-1 at this point. The series is wrapped. But like, I mean, again, like Russ is definitely, the level that he's played at and the way that he's reignited, his career over this series. Like, if you are the Clippers, I guess that is the one silver lining that you're taking from this, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a silver lining that's like having me jumping for joy. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if I'm Steve Vaughn, if I'm a Clippers fan, it's like, man, we have the right owner. We have a great front office. We have like a top tier coaching staff. We have our own arena coming within the next few years. We have stars on our team. Like, they're doing everything they're supposed to. But that shows, again, if you give the keys to the wrong player, to the wrong person, it can completely undo your entire franchise. So I'm just glad we have Cade Cunningham. How about that?
Amen.
I know that kid. I know that kid fights like hell to get on the court.
Yeah.
So, but guys, I mean, listen, I mean, it's going to be an exciting few weeks with the NBA draft lottery. It's going to be awesome to watch some NBA playoff basketball go down these next few weeks. We are going to wrap this up so we can actually go watch some NBA playoff basketball. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode of From Half Court. If you liked this episode, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, smash that mother notification bell so you don't miss any content coming from Half Court. But also follow my boys Jeff and Troy at Jeff Iafrady and Troy Sergey44. And you can even follow myself at Sean Half Court. But that is going to do it for today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.